Hi guys, today I'm doing Iready reading, water-wise, and we're learning analyzing the development of central ideas. Let's go.
You're a few blocks from home, and your stomach starts grumbling. You pop into a market for a snack. Chocolate sounds good, but then you notice it doesn't have a label for good water stewardship. That likely means it took a lot of water to produce the candy. Maybe you can find a more environmentally friendly snack. Bingo! There's an apple from a local rooftop garden, watered with little more than rainfall.
It takes 12 times as much water to produce a 3.5 ounce chocolate bar than it does to grow a 6-ounce apple.
This is what Arjen Hoekstra, a water researcher at the University of Twente in Enschede, the Netherlands, hopes to one day see. Hoekstra used his background in engineering and interest in water to pioneer a new field of study that examines how water used in the manufacturing of foods and products affects the water supply. He hopes his research will ensure a future with plenty of water. Although 70% of the planet's surface is covered with water, about 96% of that is salt water, which most land plants and animals can't use. Land-based life relies on fresh water, or unsalty water. Only about 4% of the planet's total water supply is fresh water, and more than half of that is locked up in glaciers and polar ice caps. That leaves only about 1% of the planet's total water supply as fresh, usable water. The human body needs salt, but not much of it. In a day of normal activity, including most exercise, you need only about 180 milligrams of salt. That's about half of a small salt packet. If you were to drink only salt water, you would have to pee more to get rid of the salt. Then you would need even more water, so you would pee even more, and so on. You would get very thirsty, but no matter how much you drank, your body would not get the level of water it needs to survive. This is why fresh water, which contains only a tiny amount of salt, is a precious substance.
How did salt come to be?
What problem does the passage introduce?
There's only enough. What problem does the passage introduce? There's only enough usable water in the world to last for another 70%. Only a tiny portion of the world's water can be used by plants and animals. A lot more water is needed to grow apple than is needed to produce chocolate bars. That one, because you know the chocolate bars need more than apple.
In many parts of the world, rivers have begun to run dry. People are removing too much water from rivers and lakes, leaving nothing but a dry riverbed for part of the year. The only way people can have a future with plenty of water is to limit its unnecessary use. Hoekstra developed what he calls the water footprint as a guide to help people do just that. How much water do you use? The first things that come to mind are probably taking a shower, brushing your teeth, or flushing a toilet. But these activities represent a tiny part of the human water footprint, only about 4% of what most city dwellers consume. The rest of the water use is tied up in producing the goods and services that people buy, says Hoekstra. For instance, one recent study by his group showed that it can take 32 to 58 gallons of water to produce only 12 ounces of a cola or some other soft drink. The water actually inside a can of soda accounts for much less than 1% of the total water used to make it.
So Coca-Cola is a scam.
Fill in the blanks to explain what a water footprint is.
Key substance is scam. This is what I learned. Your water footprint is a guide that can help you limit your water use by mirroring how much water you currently use. The water from it includes water that is used for cleaning and bathing, and for providing drinking water.
What are some hidden ways water is used? Tap the sentence that tells what makes up the rest of the water use. Professor Hoekstra says that the rest of the water use is tied up in producing the goods and services that people buy. The phrase, tied up, means that something is already being used for another purpose. These are additional details that tell about an important idea.
So, the answer is this one.
How is that possible? Manufacturers can use any of three types of water. Hoekstra has assigned a color designation to each. He calls precipitation that falls as rain green water. Blue water is what gets pumped out of lakes, rivers, and groundwater aquifers, or underground lakes. And Hoekstra refers to water polluted by the process of making products as gray. The total water footprint includes all three types of water: green, blue, and gray. Measured that way, a single hamburger uses 634 gallons of water. That's a lot of water for one burger. Most of its water footprint comes from growing crops used to feed cattle. That means green water, or rain, accounts for much of the hamburger's total. But when crops are grown in a dry area, or during a drought, farmers will increase the contribution of blue water. And no matter how the crops were watered, runoff from fertilizers and pesticides pollutes nearby streams, increasing the gray portion and the total water footprint.
Complete the chart with a detail explaining the types of water that manufacturers use.
Blue water is drawn from the world's cleanest ocean. Blue water is drawn from the melting polar ice caps. Blue water is drawn from the sources above and below the ground. Above and below ground.
So how big is your total water footprint? That depends on where you live. Most Americans use more than 740,000 gallons of water each year. That's more than an Olympic-sized swimming pool can hold.
Oh, wow. You're saying tomatoes use up more polluted water than a t-shirt? But it's also the most, 50%, 30%, 20% is the most, what is it called? I forgot what it's called, but it's yeah. It takes 51 gallons of water to create 2 pounds of tomatoes. So if a chicken were fed solely tomatoes, how many tomatoes will that be to make 2 pounds of chicken? That's it. I don't
Why
want to
did
do it
Professor
right now.
Hoekstra measure the water footprints of all kinds of products?
Professor Hoekstra wants to help people learn how much water it takes to make the things they buy. Professor Hoekstra wants to persuade people to buy fewer food items and more of other products. Professor Hoekstra wants to teach people how to track and measure water use the way he does.
People have water footprints, but so do the foods we eat and the products we use. Tap the sentence that tells why Professor Hoekstra started measuring the water footprints of a variety of products. Professor Hoekstra started measuring the water footprints of all kinds of products because he wanted to find out how much water manufacturers use to make them. Professor Hoekstra wanted to help raise awareness of our water use and misuse. Tap the sentence that tells what Professor Hoekstra believes people will do with the information he shares.
Wait, so 50% of rainwater for tomatoes is 25.5 gallons? And wow! And I'm so shocked that a 6-ounce t-shirt, a t-shirt that's made out of cotton, uses less water than tomatoes, less polluted water than tomatoes. That's crazy. Pasta uses more gray water than pork?
Professor Hoekstra believes that this information will help people make better decisions about which things to buy.
Professor Hoekstra wants to teach, no, not this one. Professor Hoekstra wants to teach people, wants to help people learn how much water it takes to make things that they did buy. And I don't think he said better decisions, not less food items, so this one.
Hoekstra hopes that someday a water stewardship label will make it easier to choose items with smaller water footprints. And as companies start to reduce their footprints, the number of water-wise products available will increase.
Next.
Complete the chart with the central idea of the passage.
The Earth's fresh water is a precious resource. The things people buy are made with different amounts of water. A label would help people choose items with smaller water footprints. Knowing water footprints may help people to shop more carefully. Analyzing water footprints may make companies use more water. Using water footprints may create 3 types of water. What? It's just one.